In a peaceful little town called Willowbrook, there lived an elderly woman named Elsie. Elsie was loved by everyone for her gentle nature and her eagerness to help anyone in need. Even though she stayed by herself, she never felt alone. The people in the town often stopped by her cottage to chat, ask for advice, or share something from their day. In return for her kindness, they brought her fresh food and small gifts, making sure she always had what she needed. One cool morning in the fall, Elsie thought it was a good time to go into the woods to collect firewood for her stove. As she walked further into the trees, something unusual caught her eye. Half buried under leaves and dirt was an old, rusty pot. Curious, Elsie brushed it off and lifted the lid. To her surprise, inside the pot were shining gold coins. Her eyes widened with amazement. She started to imagine a new life, one where she lived in a big, cozy house with soft rugs, a glowing fireplace, and a fancy chair to rest in. But there was a problem. The pot was much too heavy for her to carry on her own. Not ready to give up, Elsie came up with a plan. She found some old wooden boards nearby and tied a strong cloth around the pot. Slowly and carefully, she started pulling the pot behind her, using the boards like a little sled. As she made her way through the woods, something strange started to happen. The golden coins inside the pot began to look different. When Elsie stopped to rest and peeked inside, her heart sank a little. The gold had turned into silver. She felt a moment of sadness, but quickly reminded herself, silver is still precious. With that thought, she smiled and kept going, thinking that silver could still bring her a better home, warm clothes, and peaceful nights by the fire. But as she kept pulling the pot along the bumpy path, the silver coins began to dull. By the time she looked again, the silver had become iron. Elsie stood still, staring into the pot, her dreams slipping away like morning mist. The grand house, the soft blankets, the easy life, it all seemed to disappear. Elsie sat down on a tree stump and let out a long sigh. At first, she felt disappointment wash over her. But then, she closed her eyes and thought for a moment. She remembered her little cottage back in Willowbrook, the warm meals her neighbors brought, the laughter they shared, the way people came to her for comfort and advice. Before finding the pot, she had already been happy. She didn't need gold or silver to feel rich. A soft smile returned to her face. She gently patted the old pot, now filled with iron, and whispered, "I'm okay without all this." She stood up, left the pot right there in the forest, and began walking home with a light heart. That evening, Elsie sat by her little stove in her favorite old chair. The fire crackled, and she sipped a warm cup of tea, feeling peace all around her. She had everything she needed: kind people, a caring heart, and a life full of simple joys. From that day on, Elsie kept living just as she always had, offering help to others and receiving love in return. She had learned something special: real happiness comes from inside, not from what we own. And with that, she was richer than any treasure chest could ever make her. Long ago, in the grand kingdom of Ilaria, there lived a wise and well-respected ruler named King Heron. Though his hair had turned gray with age, he still ruled his land with a strong hand and a sharp mind. One day, King Heron decided to host a grand festival in his royal court. He invited neighboring rulers, a famous performer, and his beloved spiritual teacher, Sage Malin, to attend the event. The celebration was full of laughter, music, and dancing. Wanting to honor his teacher, the king handed him a bag filled with shiny gold coins. "If you enjoy the performance, please reward the dancer with these," the king said kindly. The night was alive with melody and movement. The dancer twirled with grace, and the sound of the drum echoed through the palace walls. The musician playing the drum, however, had been playing for hours without rest. As the night stretched into the early morning, his eyes began to close with sleep. The dancer noticed. She realized that if King Heron saw the musician asleep, punishment would surely follow. To help him without drawing attention, she sang a quiet verse. "The night fades fast and time is few. Don't let shame fall, stay honest and true." The words gently stirred the tired musician. He woke at once and played his drum with new energy. The verse, simple but deep, quickly caught everyone's attention. Among those listening was Prince Elric, the king's only son. He had been watching the performance quietly, but the dancer's words struck him deeply, like lightning in a silent sky. Suddenly, he stood up, took off his jeweled crown, and walked swiftly to the dancer. Without hesitation, he placed the crown at her feet. "This is my gift to you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Everyone gasped. Moments later, Princess Leora, the king's daughter, stepped forward. She removed the sparkling necklace from around her neck and gently laid it before the dancer. "You open my eyes," she said softly. "This is my offering." Then, Sage Malin rose from his seat. With trembling hands, he handed the entire bag of gold coins to the dancer. "These belong to you now," he said, bowing his head with deep respect. King Heron stood up suddenly, his face filled with shock and confusion. "What is happening here?" he demanded. "How can just a few lines make you give away such precious things? Have you all gone mad?" But before anyone could answer, Sage Malin raised his hand calmly. Sage Malin looked at the king with kind but serious eyes. "Your Majesty, please don't be upset," he said gently. "That short verse opened my heart. I've spent most of my life in the forests, praying and seeking truth. I gave up comfort to follow the path of wisdom. And yet, today, I came to enjoy music and hand out gold for entertainment. That simple verse reminded me, time is running out." He paused and placed his hand on his chest. "Should I let my soul be stained at this moment in life? I must return to my true path while I still can. That's why I gave away the coins." Then Prince Elric stepped forward. His voice was steady, but his words shook the hall. "Father," he began, "you are growing old, but you refuse to let go of the throne. I had made up my mind. Tonight, I plan to take your life and become king." A wave of shock swept through the room. But the prince continued. "But when I heard that verse, something inside me changed. Why should I carry the guilt of hurting my own father? Sooner or later, you would have passed the crown to me. That's why I gave up my crown, because today I learned what true honor means." The hall fell silent. Then Princess Leora spoke, her voice shaking. Princess Leora stepped forward, her heart full of emotion. "Father, today I had made a decision. I was going to run away with the royal elephant keeper because you refused to arrange my marriage, even though I am of age." She lowered her eyes, her voice trembling. "I felt forgotten, unloved. But when I heard that verse, I realized there's no need to act in haste. You will arrange my marriage when the time is right. I will not be rash anymore." With a deep breath, she placed her necklace at the dancer's feet. "This is my gift," she said softly as tears filled her eyes. King Heron stood there, stunned, as the weight of his children's words sank into his heart. The air in the room was heavy with silence. He looked at his son and daughter, then turned his gaze to the dancer, who had stood quietly, watching it all unfold. Without a moment's hesitation, King Heron spoke. "From this moment on, you shall be the new king," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion as he turned to Prince Elric. Then he looked at Princess Leora. "Among all these noble guests, choose the one you think is worthy of your hand. Place the garland around his neck." Finally, with a long sigh, King Heron faced the gathered crowd and spoke once more. "As for me, I will leave this throne and go into the forest. I will spend my remaining years in quiet meditation and prayer." The room was silent as the transformation took place. The dancer, standing in the center of it all, thought about what had just happened. Her simple verse had sparked such powerful changes in so many lives. She realized that, like everyone else, she too had been dancing her whole life, performing for others. But if a few words could change the lives of these great people, why couldn't she change her own life too? With newfound resolve, she made a decision. "I will leave my dance behind," she thought, "and dedicate the rest of my life to the path of spiritual devotion." Moral of the story: time moves forward whether we are ready or not. Every moment counts, and none of us know how much time we have left. Instead of wasting our lives on things that won't matter in the end, we should use our time wisely. Make decisions that will bring you peace, honor, and fulfillment. Don't let hasty actions shape your destiny. Choose the right path before it's too late. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our motivational stories, please comment on what you learned, and do not forget to like and share. Till next time, bye.